Welcome, writers. I have got Nancy Clements here with me. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you,
I
Sarah.
am so excited to have Nancy with me today because we are going to get a little nerdy here, writers, but we're going to have fun with all of this. And let me introduce you all to Nancy just a bit. I know her very well, but the rest of you might be meeting her for the first time. So Nancy is a writer and an Author Accelerator certified book coach, and she owns and operates Second Act Book Coaching and specializes in supporting analytical individuals who crave a project manager's expertise to handle the framework, freeing them to indulge in the art of storytelling. And I come from a math background, and Nancy comes from an engineering background. And so we both feel pretty strongly about perhaps more analytical people having this creativity to write a novel. So that is what we're going to dig into here today. So why is it, do you think, I'm just guessing, when people find out, oh, I'm an engineer and oh, I'm a mathematician, like people's eyes are like, and you're a book coach. like
Yeah,
what
they're
is
like,
that about? And so
"Mm,
what is it about the stigma of the STEM fields that provides some kind of disconnect when people hear like writer and ooh, STEM person? Like we can't be in the same room together. Why do you think that is?
yeah." Well, first of all, let me first say, Sarah, so thank you for inviting me today. And I think myself and coaches and writers all over the metaverse are really happy for your leadership and dedication to sharing programs
Oh,
like
thank you.
this one. So I'm really excited to be here. So anyway, so you asked, so
What is it
why does
about the
STEM people
STEM? Yes.
stop them? Well, I think it even stopped me for a long time because I didn't come to writing until I was an adult. I always hear those stories about people who have been writing since they were 6. Well, that wasn't me. Um, but I think that what holds people back from being novelists um, are that they don't think that they're creative enough or they don't have that emotionality. But I have come to believe that, we learned craft just like we learned calculus and just like we learned computer programming or engineering or whatever. It's something that comes with learning. Um, so, but I do think that we don't always think of the creative mind that writes books is the same as the analytical mind that does engineering. And, there's this myth about right brain people and left brain people. And that, I think I've read enough articles to know that that's not really true. And when you add on to that, the um, complexity of what engineers do or innovators do when it comes to technology and science and all that kind of stuff, I don't think people see that creativity that takes to do that is the same kind of creativity that fuels storytelling. But I believe that is the same creativity, and probably more so because engineers and scientists work within like this small box, right? And so they have to really dig deep to figure out new solutions, and I think that we do that in novels as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love that because I have often felt the same way that creativity is most apparent based on like the boundaries that we have to work within. I think sometimes people think I can be more creative if I have all the choices available to me. And I'm like, no, actually, I think you're more creative if you have, a very prescriptive kind of thing. And it's like, now how can I create something that's innovative and unique out of this thing that's like you said, like within the box. So I love that. I love that framework for it.
yeah, and I don't think writing a novel is not unstructured,
No. Thank
right?
goodness.
it's hard. It takes a long time. You've got all of these things happening,
Yeah.
the characters, the plot. If you write thriller, you're talking about red herrings and clues and all this other stuff. It's very complex. And so I think that um, uh, that it takes that kind of creativity that really comes from a STEM background.
Yeah.
Um, and if I have to say that there's something that's missing, maybe it's on that emotionality side. But the same thing is that novels are written with universal themes, right? The ones that connect the deepest to people are about universal things that are true for everybody. Doesn't matter what you do for work or where you went to college or what culture you come from, right? And so I kind of feel like that depth, again, it can be learned as part of craft, um,
Yeah.
is part of everybody's wheelhouse.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So we've kind of like skirted around some positive aspects that we bring if we're for our STEM background here. If we're, I think that people who come from STEM probably feel a little bit nervous about dipping their toes into the writing world, and they might feel imposter syndrome more than writers who are coming from an English degree, for instance. But I mean, let's live it up here with the STEM people. I mean, what are the positive characteristics, attributes, whatever we wish to call them, that STEM people can bring into writing a novel specifically?
Yeah. I would say that the biggest thing that I don't know if I would list them 1 to 10 or whatever,
Sure.
but the biggest thing would be like world building, right? If I One of my most recent favorite books is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And he was a software engineer. And just thinking about everything that went into that book, right? It's space travel, it's computer technology, he had to learn an alien's language, they had to do biology. Think about all the stuff that went into that book is just crazy. By the way, he's the same author who wrote The Martian. And both books, I know that of course The Martian was a turned into a film, and I understand that they're making Project Hail Mary into a film now too. So I'm really excited about that. Um, so yeah, I mean, world building, anything sci-fi, if if the world is really steeped in real science, I think it holds up to the scrutiny of somebody who wants to um, question that world. Um, there's also in thrillers, which is what I love to write and read, of all these intricate plots. And so I think that um, engineers and scientists can take a really massive problem and break it into smaller parts. And so that helps to, you know, create and dole out all the revelations and the
Yeah.
clues and the red herrings. And so I think that that's somewhere else that they could be really excel.
Yeah. For me, it's cause and effect. Like that's where I see it come most frequently. And I'm sure some of that has to do with the mathematical background, especially in higher level mathematics. You know what you're starting with and what you're trying to prove. And so you have to figure out how you're going to get from point A to point B in a step-by-step process that makes logical sense. You can't skip around and do things out of
Right.
order. They have to go in a sequential order. And so that is where I have found it to be most helpful uh, on the writing side.
Yeah. And being, I mean, you could probably list a dozen things: being methodical, being disciplined, being I already mentioned breaking down complex problems, but uh I think there's a ton of different ways I think that they would
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think we can overstate the project management because that does often overwhelm writers, and that's a lot of times why they will abandon a project because they haven't considered the overall scope of the thing, and then they get stuck in the middle and they can't get out. Not to say that STEM people don't get stuck while writing, but I think just kind of knowing what the overall process is that you're going to do in order to accomplish the thing is really helpful.
Yeah, and you bring that up because um, it made me think that I really like outlining. I mean, we're very different in that sense. I'm really an outliner, and I've come from, from my background. I've done that a lot, but I know that you're.
No, I am 100% outline. I
Oh,
am firmly in the outlining camp. I've got spreadsheets.
oh, even better. And yes, my blueprint is in in a spreadsheet.
Yes. Yes, 100%. So
Yeah.
I am definitely on board there. What have you found either in your personal experience or in working with other writers, since you do work with writers who tend to come from these similar backgrounds? What have you found to be most challenging?
Um, I think understanding the lingo,
Mm,
um, and when you get a lot of you're showing not telling, or you're telling not showing, or that there's no emotional connection, those kinds of things. And when you kind of talk about it sort of in the high level, I think those are tough to figure out. And I think that's where reading extensively comes in, practice, getting feedback, all of those things I think are really important, for someone who's new. When I was creating my own course, I took that into consideration, that I started with the sort of backstory, right, of a character, to figure out where they've been and what do they believe and what is wrong about their beliefs necessarily. Um, and but I was really cognizant about giving concrete examples, because those concrete examples would then be like, oh, that's what they mean by interior thoughts, or that's what they mean about how the backstory is affecting how their revelation, or how they're going to have revelation. So, yeah.
yeah, I agree. I love that you pointed out examples because especially like in math and computer science, and I would assume in engineering as well, it's like very common in our textbooks as we are learning principles of things to see an example of it in action. It's like as opposed to somebody just saying, this is how you add. It's like you actually see examples of how it's done, and usually examples from different angles, like here's how it's done in this circumstance and here's a different kind of way you might apply it. And I think that can be so helpful to apply that to writing as well, writing and reading.
Yeah, it's interesting about, how math and science and engineering have all changed so much in the advent of computers. Because I remember when I was first starting out, when you did those examples, you got a feeling for the numbers because you did everything sort of longhand. And I think that's missing today. And I don't know if that's a tangent, or if there's it means something to the conversation. But there was that um yeah, feeling that you knew you were in the right realm,
Yeah, yeah.
which has been a bit lost. And I wonder if that's a difference between, handwriting your story versus putting it all in Scrivener.
It could be. I like to do a fair amount of work by hand,
Mhm.
just because I feel
Same.
like I can be more free with it. It feels more official when it's being typed in a computer to me.
Too many chances to edit
Yeah,
as you go.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So, okay. So for people who might be coming from STEM, we hope that we are encouraging you to pursue your novel. You're like, yes, you absolutely have the right to write. But are there any maybe specific suggestions or tips you might have for people who might be breaking into this for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of them would be kind of the same tips that you would give to all writers,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
Leveraging what you know.
Yeah.
If you want to write a story about a bridge engineer, or you're a bridge engineer and that's what you know, then, write a story. I'm waiting for someone to write a story about a bridge engineer. Um, um, but, so writing what you know, but also, in that same realm, maybe it's not engineering related or science related, but, if I apply that, if something happened to me 20 years ago, I have that thing happen to my characters because you know it so deeply, you know how you felt about it. And so, definitely put that kind of stuff in your novel. Um, I would use definitely real scientific principles, especially if you're doing something that's sci-fi related. I think that that's important. Get feedback. I mean, I think I already mentioned some of that last time was to or earlier to write often, get feedback, read
Yeah.
the things that you want to write, read in that genre, and get familiar with who are the good writers, what are they doing, how can you emulate them. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and I also think depending on where people are coming from in STEM, so I have uh, more experience in academic circles, so coming from the world of academia, where the scientific journal writing is just, it couldn't be more opposite of writing a
Yeah.
novel. And so if you're coming from that background, writers, you're going to have to remove passive voice from your writing, and you're going to have to make things not sound so wooden. Maybe bring in a little more personality and things like that. And that's where I do think it can be helpful to accelerate your learning by working with somebody, whether it's a teacher at a local college or a book coach or an editor or whatever that looks like. I do think you'll learn more quickly what you need to do in order to maybe break some of those things that are not only accepted but expected when you're writing more for that academic market.
Yeah, and I actually have a book suggestion is Lisa Cron's book Wired for Story, because I think that people from a scientific background would really like to understand what story does to our brains and will really love reading um, you know, what she wrote there. It's a book about connecting with your readers and how to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great suggestion. All right, so I want to make sure that we let folks know how they can connect with you, because you also, why don't you tell us what types of writers you typically work with?
So I my the genre that I love, I already mentioned it, is thriller. So thrillers, and I'm just starting to get into romance, if you can believe that. Um, but thrillers are definitely my thing. But I tend to like to work with people who are like me, who are very analytical and want to sort of do this step by step process. In fact, I have a course on my website called Engineer Your Thriller. And it's a four part online course. It talks about theme, villain, the crime, and then the hero. It actually can be applied to other genres as well, but it was written for a thriller. It comes with a psychological questionnaire, it comes with a workbook, and I use examples from popular thrillers, the ones that I love. So you can get a feel for um, what writers are writing about in the thriller genre.
No, that's great. And what is your website? We'll have a link to it, but
Okay, yeah, my website is secondactbookcoaching.com. You can find me there.
awesome. Yep. Writers, we will have links to Nancy's website, the course, and all the ways you can connect with Nancy online. And we always are happy to connect with fellow STEM nerds in the writing world. We have to stick together, right? Well, Nancy, I just want to thank you so much for joining me and for this conversation.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone who watched.
All right, writers, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.